He's considered the father of Australian jazz, an appropriate accolade after performing thousands of gigs over 60 years. That's how long Graham Bell has been entertaining Australian audiences. Bell has seen the music he loves evolve from the rebellious music of his youth to the reserve of the sedate and mature during the course of his long career. In fact, he has been around long enough to see jazz come back into fashion with a new generation. But the 84-year-old has had enough of life on the road, and this weekend gives his farewell concert at the Melbourne International Jazz Festival. Josephine Cafagna reports.
There are so many other musicians deserving of accolades that I feel uncomfortable about too much being heaped on me, because, as I say, I've probably created some good band sounds, but I'm not a brilliant musician myself. I have plenty of ideas, and I'm moderately gifted, put it that way.
Praise doesn't sit comfortably with Australian jazz great Graham Bell, the musician considered by many to be the father of traditional jazz in Australia.
Yeah, well, I'm not comfortable with that term at all, really, because it's open for debate. Who is the father of Australian jazz, if there is even such a person, which I doubt.
Graham's younger brother Roger, who was to play alongside him in a band for many years, is credited with introducing Graham to jazz in the early 30s.
I brought home some records by Fats Waller, who, as you probably know, he was a buffoon mainly, but he was an excellent pianist and an excellent composer too. And this got to Graham, and he thought maybe I better examine this more carefully, and which he did, and he got into it that way.
The brothers set up a band with fellow jazz enthusiasts like Ade Monsborough and Pixie Roberts, and through the 30s and 40s they established their reputation at the forefront of jazz in Australia and eventually overseas.
We were just enjoying ourselves and in creating this music that we'd heard only by records. There was very little that we'd heard in the flesh. And I think we didn't realise we were breaking any new ground until we went to England on that first trip overseas. And we were told we were breaking new ground.
The things he did post-war with the band he had with Pixie Roberts and Lazy Aid and so on, and his brother Roger, that went to Czechoslovakia and generally throughout Europe and England, it was a real beachhead as far as the establishment in the minds of overseas people that jazz actually existed in Australia, I think. It was very important.
In 1947, the Bell Band was invited to play in Prague, and a planned 2-week visit turned into a 4-month tour to packed houses and rave reviews. Jazz was born in Czechoslovakia.
My mama really wanted to know just last night.
They sent us on concert tours all around Bohemia and Moravia to lots of these little towns that they didn't know jazz from a hole in the ground.
Graham Bell and his jazz band went from strength to strength, touring the world and encouraging the young audiences to dance to the music, which they're still doing today. He turns 85 this year, and after producing more than 1,500 recordings and performing thousands of gigs in Australia and around the world, Graham has decided to slow the pace and end his touring days.
The farewell concert's only a farewell concert until the next offer that you can't refuse comes along. Probably it's a farewell concert as far as any big productions like this are concerned, but it doesn't mean I won't. But it doesn't mean I'll be ceasing playing the piano.
The younger generation of jazz players believes Bell has stamped his name on the genre of music.
Graham's contribution to Australian jazz is enormous and continues to be. Of course, firstly, for all those years, all those gigs, all those sounds that he played, but now there's also the legacy that he's left of a name in jazz like that people know, that's brought a lot of people to jazz that wouldn't have been.
After a lifetime of carrying the flag for traditional jazz, Graham Bell feels the genre may be losing its appeal.
I think it was one of those beautiful forms of musical expression that was spawned at the beginning of this century, and it could even die out at the end of this century.
Perhaps we should have said the first in a series of farewell concerts.